A warm greeting. Today is Tuesday, August 8, 2023. This is meteorologist Ruben Garcia speaking. In this video, I will be discussing a tropical wave that will be moving through the Caribbean and is expected to bring substantial rainfall to the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic from tomorrow, Wednesday, until Friday. Additionally, in this video, I will be addressing why we haven't seen cyclonic development in the past few days, even though in the previous video, I mentioned that this week the conditions seemed favorable for the potential development of strong tropical waves originating from Africa. If you had the opportunity to watch my last video, remember that I mentioned the conditions were expected to be favorable this week for the emergence of strong tropical waves with the potential for cyclonic development. However, we have observed that these tropical waves haven't found the necessary conditions for cyclonic development. This is despite the fact that sea surface temperatures in the tropical Atlantic region are quite warm. This is why hurricane season forecasters still predict that this hurricane season should be more active than usual. These forecasts indicate that the warm temperatures in the tropical Atlantic are counteracting the effects of El Niño. As a result, over the next few months, cyclonic activity is expected to significantly increase in both the tropical and subtropical Atlantic. When we examine the following graph, we can see that since late July, wind shear in the tropical Atlantic region has remained close to normal, even slightly below average. Despite the presence of El Niño, we have also observed that the Caribbean region has experienced lower than normal wind shear. It appears that, for now, wind shear isn't the reason behind the recent inactivity. Now, the question is, what has caused these tropical waves to not encounter favorable conditions? The tropical Atlantic region has been drier than usual, as depicted in the following image. The red colors represent dry and stable air that continues to move from the subtropical Atlantic towards the area between the Caribbean and Africa. Even though strong tropical waves are emerging from Africa, as they move westward, they encounter dry air and Sahara dust, which hinders their development. Currently, this dry air has prevented development in this area. This is definitely good news, and we'll be closely monitoring whether this is a temporary situation or if it persists in the coming weeks. This can also be observed in the next image, where the brown colors represent dry and stable air that is currently dominating the tropical Atlantic region. The tropical waves are struggling to maintain thunderstorm development along their axis, which has prevented their transformation into tropical cyclones. Nevertheless, some of these waves bring significant precipitation when they reach the Caribbean. Currently, we have a tropical wave located near 55 degrees west longitude, carrying substantial rainfall. At the moment, it remains disorganized, and no cyclonic development is expected as it moves over the eastern Caribbean region. However, it will still bring considerable rainfall to the Lesser Antilles, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic between Wednesday and Thursday. The next 2 to 3 days will be rainy in this area, with rainfall accumulations ranging from 1 to 3 inches. Particularly, from the island of Guadeloupe to the regions of Trinidad and Tobago. Additionally, note that for Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, rainfall of 1 to 2 inches, or 50 to 75 millimeters, is expected. The good news is that this tropical wave currently lacks cyclonic development potential, unlike what I anticipated in our last video. However, I'll remain vigilant as it moves through the Caribbean and later into the Gulf of Mexico, as conditions might provide an opportunity for low-pressure system development. We will be observing to see if it finds favorable conditions for development when it reaches the Western Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico waters. Nevertheless, this probability is quite low, and as you can see, only about 10 to 15% of the European Model Ensemble members predict the formation of a low-pressure system. Additionally, note that a strong tropical wave will emerge from Africa next week. While it's too early to determine if it will encounter favorable conditions for development, we'll be attentive to see if the dry air continues to hinder the development of these tropical waves or if conditions change. In terms of probabilities, the European Model Ensemble predicts a 10 to 15% chance of a tropical depression forming in the Gulf of Mexico associated with the tropical wave that will be moving through the Caribbean over the next few days. The chances of development at the moment remain quite low. Also, note that for the beginning of next week, a strong tropical wave has a 30 to 40% chance of development as it passes near the Cape Verde Islands. However, this will depend on the prevailing conditions of dry air in the tropical Atlantic and whether this dry air persists in the coming weeks. While we anticipate that this dry air might lessen at some point, there might be better development prospects by the end of August or the beginning of September. The good news is that, for now, there's no reason to worry in the Atlantic region, as no development is expected over the next 7 days. Between the 3rd and 4th weeks of August, we will be paying close attention to that tropical wave emerging from Africa. However, note that in NOAA's forecast, there's a low probability of only about 20% for a tropical cyclone to develop. Although we will be attentive to this region between the Caribbean and Africa, the chances of development remain quite low at the moment, and this will persist as long as the dry air continues to dominate the tropical Atlantic region. Always remember to stay alert and prepared, especially during the peak of the season. Starting from August 15th, we will enter the peak of the hurricane season, which lasts until mid-October. Historically, this is when we've seen the highest formation of storms and hurricanes in the Atlantic region. Even though there's no immediate concern, stay vigilant in the coming weeks. Keep in mind that there's currently no risk of cyclonic development, and the formation of a tropical cyclone is not expected for at least the next 7 days. Well, that's all for the tropical conditions update. Stay tuned because over the next few days, I will be recording a video to update you on forecasts from various groups. They continue to predict a more active hurricane season than usual in the Atlantic region. I hope everyone has a great week. Until next time.